Hello again, welcome back. You're watching the ITV News channel. Now, there's been a huge explosion near Hemel Hempstead in Hertfordshire. It happened at Buncefield oil depot just after 6 o'clock this morning. These dramatic pictures give some indication of the extent of the explosion. The force of the blast, which was heard up to 40 miles away, sent flames shooting 200 feet into the night sky. To give to us, but instead we're joined by Duncan Milligan. He's on the line. Duncan, where are you?
I'm in Hemel Hempstead. I'm a local resident and also the press officer for the Fire Brigades Union.
Well, you're a very good person to speak to then under those circumstances. We've heard from your local MP himself, a former firefighter, that the fire brigades believe that they can control this fire, even though there's potentially 60 million gallons worth of fuel there.
Yes, they will at some point bring it under control. It's not under control yet. What would have happened is that they would have made the incident a major incident very quickly. It's known in the jargon as a gold command incident. They would have sent the first resources from the Hertfordshire Fire Service, whole-time and retained firefighters, part-time firefighters. They will then have called on brigades in the surrounding areas. But with this type of fire, you can't pour water on an oil fire. You need a very specialist type of foam. Now, what they're probably going to be using is what's called aqueous film forming foam, AFFF, as it's known in the fire service. They may not have all the stocks that they need available locally, and what would typically happen is that a local emergency fire control that will be coordinating all the work will have been calling on additional foam tenders from around the Hertfordshire area, and it wouldn't surprise me if over the next couple of days we would see resources of foam tenders brought in from across the UK.
Is this specialist work, Duncan, or is this something that the local fire brigade can do themselves?
No, the local fire brigade will have carefully prepared for that. It will have, the oil depot would have been known as a local area of serious and major risk because of the potential for what's happened this morning. They will have trained, they will have some immediate resources that they can use. They will call on, and this is a typical response, they will start calling on brigades nearby to start coming and help them with, with personnel and with other additional specialist equipment, such as the additional foam tenders that they are certainly going to need.
Now, you and the police have been evacuating nearby homes. Are you at all worried? Because the local MP told us, Mike Penning told us, that so far the buildings that have gone up in flames are commercial buildings in the industrial park in which all this is situated, and that they haven't spread to nearby houses. Are you worried that this fire could spread to people's homes? Well,
that would be part of the reason why they would be evacuating. Because there isn't any point taking the risk that the fire does spread, or that there's an additional explosion or explosions which can cause damage to people. It's a fail-safe measure basically to push people out, and it's a typical measure that you would take in these circumstances. I'm sure Mike Penning, who was a firefighter in Essex, will know the procedures for doing that.
Now, 36 casualties, 4 people seriously injured so far. Do you know what the injuries are? Presumably people inhaling this very nasty-looking smoke that we're looking at must account for some of them.
Well, I don't know the precise nature of the injuries, but obviously an incident like this, typically you'd be looking at those who are in the immediate vicinity, with burns injuries and blast injuries, and anyone who was nearby, who was on the other side of a glass window, may also have had sort of more sort of minor but quite significant to aim injuries.
All right, many thanks indeed for that.
Well, we can actually join Annabelle Archer on the phone now. Hello again, Annabelle.
Hi there.
Hi, can you give us an idea about the extent of the damage to the surrounding area now as it becomes apparent and as the daylight is here?
Yes, well, I've been at an extraordinary vantage point for the past 3 hours now, just 5 miles north at a place called Jockey End. And just to let you know what I can see from here, perhaps, as the sun has come up, it's actually created a very hazy effect, but still billows of smoke coming up into the sky, and we can still see flames from here as well. So extraordinary scenes. I understand that from the police that damage is at the moment just on the commercial property on the industrial estate nearby, but there must be concerns that will spread to possibly spread to residential areas.
We have been told by a number of eyewitnesses that homes have been damaged. They've been reporting seeing cars sort of shunted into garages, doors blown off, windows blown out, even indeed ceilings falling down. Is that something which you've been aware of from where you are?
From where I am now, we're perhaps too far away for that. But when I got here at 6:45 this morning, residents had come out to the field where I'm standing at the moment, and everyone was just mouths open agog looking at the view that we can see. But yes, as you say, I understand that windows have been shattered and front doors of houses damaged. But everyone here at Jockey End in this particular area seems to be all right.
What about the smoke? That is something which you can see, I understand, very clearly from where you are, from your vantage point. That really goes in a huge plume up into the air, doesn't it? How big an area do you think does that cover? Can you make any kind of estimate?
Well, it must be a huge area, because from what I can see, just 1,000 feet plus this smoke billowing into the sky, and flames must be 300 feet. So I imagine that the area is very wide, and that containment is the first concern for the emergency services.
And how is that smoke beginning to affect people? Because obviously at the moment that smoke is high up in the stratosphere, high up in the atmosphere, but at some point that is going to descend, isn't it? And that must be one of the more alarming prospects facing the emergency services and the local population.
Yeah, absolutely. The local residents who I've been talking to and been with this morning, that's what they were talking about, how the smoke will descend. I imagine it's worse for people who are a lot nearer. But I understand police are advising people to stay indoors and keep their windows and doors shut for the time being.
The force of the blast, we've been told, could be heard up to 40 miles away. It could be heard in central London. The flames, we also understand, shot more than 200 feet into the sky, and those flames are, of course, still burning furiously. Also being reported that the blasts were heard in Berkshire and in Surrey. You obviously heard that huge blast, the initial first blast, and the two subsequent ones this morning. How did you react?
Well, I was awoken, like many others, to a huge, very loud, prolonged thud, which not something you would expect to be hearing early on a Sunday morning. And my first reaction, honestly, was that there'd been a minor earthquake. Our house literally shook, so a very, very loud noise, which must have been very distressing for a lot of people, especially the people nearer the explosion.
So how worried are people where you are now that it's becoming apparent exactly what the situation is, and that it is going to be possible, one presumes, to contain it somehow? How are people reacting now?
I think that people have sort of started to leave our vantage point, and people are a little calmer. The horse riders have actually been out sort of around the field that I am. So I think that calm is beginning to settle in now, I think. But for the people near, and especially those who've been evacuated, the near future must be very uncertain and quite scary.
OK, Annabelle, thank you very much. Annabelle Archer once again speaking to us there from just a few miles away from that blast.
Well, people living close to the site spoke of being woken up by the noise of the explosion.
I was in bed at 6 o'clock, and then I heard this mighty bang, and then the door fell off in my bedroom. The house shook. The windows in my mum's bedroom got blown out. The downstairs patio door got blown out, and everyone just woke up and was outside the street trying to find what happened. And obviously the big fire, which is just literally a 5-minute walk from my house.
I was awoken at about 5 to 6 this morning, thinking that it was another recurrence of an earthquake that happened about 3 years ago, a little rumble, and in the background just heard shattering windows and car alarms and stuff such like going off. I came downstairs and found my front door here lying on the stairs, completely blown off its hinges.
Just after 6 this morning, a massive bang. Opened my eyes, basically saw the curtains blow up into the air, massive light. Obviously shot out of bed, looked out the window and just saw what looked like flames, but I couldn't quite see where they were. Just looked up, put the light on, just glass absolutely everywhere, all over the whole room. Came downstairs, struggled to get the front door open because the impact had sort of jolted the door, and then saw the sheer devastation of actually looking at the front of the house. Also, it was still pitch black, so you couldn't see everything, and it was just a nightmare really, walking out here and seeing everyone out here just trying to see what actual damage there is to the houses.
Well, Colin Hobdy, a resident in the Hemel area, was about half a mile from the fire when he took this video of the flames and plumes of smoke shortly after the explosion. Earlier, he described what he saw.
I saw the flames from my bedroom window, grabbed some clothes and went down to where you could see I was standing with the image. And there was already one police unit on scene. There wasn't much response happening yet, as you can imagine, because it's very early in the morning on a Sunday. And,
what did you think initially had happened?
Being a local lad, I guessed it was that sort of direction of the oil depot. And people were panicking, suggesting planes, but I didn't believe in that. You know, it does appear like myself, I thought it to be an accident at the depot.
What did you hear from the police? Were they quickly in the surrounding area telling people what to do, telling people they had to leave?
Well, they were starting to set up outer cordons at that point where I was standing. Where I was standing was in Hemel, which is Swallowdale Lane, junction with 3 Cherry Cheese Lane. And it was just starting to get together about 20 past 6. As you can imagine, it's as with all incidents, it takes a bit of time for a response to occur.
You say that you're a local lad, you've lived there for quite some time, I assume. What do you know about the Buncefield oil depot? How large is it?
Yeah, as it's described already, it's a very large depot. It does serve a large part of the southeast area, including the airports.
Well, yet another eyewitness report. It's an extraordinary scene here. The fire has now been burning for what? It's coming up now for 5 hours that this fire has been going ahead. There were all sorts of initial reports. You'll remember that initially somebody said they thought they'd seen a plane flying into this oil depot. That was quickly discounted by the police to the relief of all of us, of course. The police now saying that this absolutely is just an accident, but it's an extraordinary fire. 60 million gallons of fuel are held there. It's a big depot. This is a depot that serves both Luton Airport and also Heathrow Airport. It's operated by Total. It's part owned by Texaco. It stores a mixture. If you're wondering what you're watching burning, this is a mixture. This is what a mixture of oil, petrol and kerosene looks like when it goes on fire. The depot also is used by BP, Shell and British Pipeline. Lots of claims and counterclaims. At one point we were being told that as many as 60 million gallons of fuel could be on fire, but some of the fuel experts that we've been speaking to say that this depot, although it contains all that gasoline, it contains the gasoline in separate sealed tanks. So though one tank might go on fire, other tanks are self-contained and might not. But of course it's an ongoing fear that all of them could go up if they're not quite as self-contained as the expert.
A very good afternoon to you. This is the ITV News Channel, and there's just one story dominating our news coverage this afternoon. There's been a series of massive explosions near Hemel Hempstead in Hertfordshire. It happened at the Buncefield Oil Depot, the 5th largest in the UK, at around 6 o'clock this morning. The M1 motorway 10 miles away has been closed in both directions because of the thick black smoke. that's hanging in the air. These dramatic pictures give you an indication of the size and power of the explosions, which were felt up to 40 miles away, sending flames shooting 200 feet into the early morning sky. Nearby homes have been badly damaged, windows shattered and doors blown off their hinges. Many people have been evacuated from their homes. Police say at this stage they believe it was an accident and they're not linking the explosion to any act of terrorism. It's believed there were only a small number of workers on the site at the time. Police say there are around 36 casualties, some thought to be local residents. 4 people are seriously injured. Police say the fire could carry on for days. They're warning people in the area to stay indoors. And from space, an extraordinary satellite picture of Britain clearly visible in the bottom right-hand corner, a black cloud of smoke covering hundreds of miles. Keir Simmons has more now on today's developments.
The explosions could be heard 40 miles away. The first happened just after 6 this morning.
The heat from here is unbelievable. You can really feel the heat.
An amateur cameraman risked his own safety to film these pictures.
This whole building here, completely gone. No windows left, nothing. This building here, look at the state of this building. And still, one tank is still to go. Still not gone. Let's hope to God that doesn't go while I'm standing here.
Inevitably, thoughts turned to terrorism. In fact, the police say they are treating this as an accident. Still, 36 people are injured, 4 seriously.
There was just a mighty explosion, and it was just like air going through the whole house. It just shook.
The door fell off in my bedroom, the house shook, the windows in my mum's bedroom got blown out, the downstairs patio door got blown out.
The force of the explosion evident in street after street of this normally quiet corner of Hertfordshire.
I came downstairs and found my front door here lying on the stairs, completely blown off its hinges. And I came to look outside, saw a few of the people in the vicinity gathering, and then saw the flames, as you can see, over the far side.
Around 100 police officers and as many firefighters are at the scene, though there will have been more arriving, because the Buncefield depot stores many forms of fuel. A major concern is now the heavy smoke that is pouring into the atmosphere.
Our very strong advice is that people must keep out of the plume of smoke, and if the windows of your house have been blown out or are damaged, then we would suggest that you should evacuate yourself to somewhere safer. Our advice to the public, the best advice we can give at this moment, is that you should stay indoors, close your windows and watch the news for updates.
Hundreds of people have been evacuated from their homes and are sheltering at a makeshift centre in Jarman's Park on the outskirts of Hemel Hempstead.
It was very frightening. I thought maybe it was a plane crash or a bomb.
People have left their homes with very little time to gather belongings, waiting now until this huge blaze can be extinguished. Keir Simmons, ITV News.
Well, let's take a look now at a live picture of the City of London. The skyline darkened very visibly by a pall of black smoke drifting from west to east from the Hemel Hempstead area across London. Remember, police in the Hemel Hempstead area have advised residents to stay indoors because of the contents of the actual smoke, obviously irritants that could be inhaled. But as you see, it's drifting straight across London. Already there's been fog this morning. This has kind of added to that as well. But as you can see, a very, very gloomy picture across the City of London right at this very moment. And our reporter, Shuli Ghosh, is about half a mile away from the actual scene of the explosion. She says the effects of the blast have been felt over a wide area.
residential street which is separated from the refinery by just a field, and as you can see there's been a lot of damage here too. Windows blown in, doors blown right off their hinges, a lot of repair work going on here right now. With me is Peter and Leslie McCabe. This is your house, your door that's been blown off. What happened?
Well, around 6 o'clock this morning we were woken by an almighty blast. And as we all came running out of bedrooms, there was sort of still a gush of air coming up the stairs to find the door actually in the hallway. And we all sort of came rushing out, and everybody was doing the same thing at the same time. And we realised it was sort of right down the street, really.
Everybody must have come rushing out of the houses at the time.
All around about the same time. Yeah, it was just after 6 o'clock this morning. So quite a rude awakening.
Peter, is it worrying that you live, I mean, you're separated by a field from the main blast, and you can see the black cloud hanging over it. Is that worrying, being so close?
Well, not really. Well, we're still getting the explosions. We've had the odd explosions since then, and that's a bit worrying, mainly. We've had 2 explosions this morning. There was 3 after the main blast this morning. Then we've had another 2.
Another couple since, isn't there? Yeah.
What did you think had happened?
Originally, I thought it might have been a plane come down, because we did think something had hit the top of the house.
It was that loud?
It was that loud, yes. I've never heard anything like it. And you could see the flames in the field, and that was my initial reaction. But we found out since it's the depot, which is surprising.
OK, Peter and Leslie McCabe, thank you very much. The clean-up operation is still going on in here. I can tell you that Hertfordshire Police are trying to keep people well away from the area, and so much so that they've actually drafted in a battalion of Metropolitan Police officers who've come up from London and are helping to cordon off all the surrounding streets. It's very difficult to get around Hemel Hempstead at the moment, and it's impossible to get any closer to the refinery than we are at the moment. The other thing that is happening is that people are panic buying petrol. Now, as I drove up to Hemel Hempstead from the Watford area this morning, I could see all the forecourts absolutely jam-packed with people queuing to try and get petrol into their cars. And I'm being told, I haven't had this confirmed, but I'm being told that 1 or 2 petrol stations have actually run out of fuel because people are so worried that the impact of the blast on this oil refinery means that there will be no petrol available in this area for the foreseeable future. Now, the authorities are saying that's not the case, and there won't be a shortage of petrol, but of course people are worried that there will be a fuel shortage, so there is a lot of panic buying going on, and the message from the authorities is not to do that if at all possible. The other important message that people are being told is to stay out of the cloud. Now, while we've been here, the cloud has moved. It's actually changed direction. It's coming more eastwards now, but that cloud does have irritants in it. People are being told, if their windows and doors have been blown in, to cover up their windows and doors and to stay indoors. Now, of course, people aren't doing that. I don't know if you can see behind me, but people are out on the roads looking at the blast and looking at the flames, which 6 hours later are still shooting into the air. And that's the situation here, about half a mile from the refinery.
Police have set up a casualty bureau number for people wanting information about relatives. That number is 0800 096 0095. That's 0800 096 0095. They've also advised that anyone feeling unwell should contact NHS Direct. The number to call is 0845 4647. That's the NHS Direct hotline, which is 0845 4647. And if you were nearby when the accident happened, then please send us your pictures. You can either email them to us to the address yourvideo@itv.com. That's yourvideo@itv.com. Or you can send us still photos or video pictures via an MMS message on your mobile phone. The number is 07738 100 200. That's 07738 100 200. And here are some we've already received from viewers today. Colin Hobday, a resident in the Hemel area, was about half a mile from the fire when he took this video of the flames and plumes of smoke shortly after the explosion. We've also been speaking to people who live very close to the site of the blast. They spoke of being woken up by the noise of the explosion.
I was in bed at 6 o'clock and then I heard this mighty bang, and then the door fell off in my bedroom. The house shook. The windows in my mum's bedroom got blown out. The downstairs patio door got blown out, and everyone just woke up and was outside the street trying to find what happened. Obviously, a big fire, which is just literally a 5-minute walk from my house.
I was awoken at about 5 to 6 this morning, thinking that it was another recurrence of an earthquake that happened about 3 years ago, a little rumble, and in the background just heard shattering windows and car alarms and stuff such like going off. I came downstairs and found my front door here lying on the stairs, completely blown off its hinges.
Just after 6 this morning, a massive bang. Opened my eyes, basically saw the curtains blow up into the air, massive light. Obviously shot out of bed, looked out the window and just saw what looked like flames, but I couldn't quite see where they were. Just looked up, put the light on, just glass absolutely everywhere, all over the whole room. Came downstairs, struggled to get the front door open because the impact had sort of jolted the door, and then saw the sheer devastation of actually looking at the front of the house. Also, it was still pitch black, so you couldn't see everything, and it was just a nightmare, really. Walking out here and seeing everyone out here just trying to see what actual damage there is to the houses.
The oil depot affected by today's explosions in Hemel Hempstead is one that supplies aviation fuel to airports in the southeast of England. Both Heathrow and Luton airports say there's no threat to supplies for aircraft. A Heathrow spokesperson says they're also able to get aviation fuel from a separate facility, and there's no indication there'll be any shortage in the foreseeable future. However, the smoke from the explosions has led to some flight cancellations at Heathrow today. Luton Airport is reporting no delays. A Luton spokeswoman says the main problem is the closure of the M1 near the airport. Passengers are advised to leave a lot of extra time and follow diversions to the airport. Well, Dan Rivers is at the police station in Welwyn Garden City where the operation is being directed.
Yeah, they've had a briefing here this morning to give us an update on the situation. As Shuli was saying, at the moment they're saying it appears this was an accident, although they're saying they're keeping an open mind. They have 100 officers deployed at the scene, 100 police officers deployed at the scene and 100 firefighters. I was just talking to some police officers, though, who are arriving here now. I would think pretty much every policeman in the area is being drafted in to help put the cordon in place, to help evacuate homes and to try and secure the area. As we've heard, 36 people injured and 4 seriously. There is, though, a big concern about this cloud of fumes that are coming off the oil depot. We drove through it. It's certainly pretty thick. In fact, when I set out this morning, I could see it from West London. That gives you an idea of how extensive it is. We spoke earlier on to the Chief Constable of Hertfordshire Police, Frank Whitley. This is what he had to say about that cloud of fumes.
This cloud, not least because it contains heavy smoke, is an irritant and will certainly make people who inhale it potentially cough, potentially irritate their eyes and potentially feel nauseous. Our very strong advice is that people must keep out of the plume of smoke, and if the windows of your house have been blown out or are damaged, then we would suggest that you should evacuate yourself to somewhere safer. Our advice to the public, the best advice we can give at this moment, is that you should stay indoors, close your windows and watch the news for updates.
Well, the police have given out a couple of numbers if you are concerned about people here. There is a number if you're concerned about relatives or friends who may have been injured, a casualty bureau number. That number is 0800 096 0095. That casualty bureau number, 0800 096 0095. And the police are saying if you're feeling unwell from the thick fumes that are coming off, you should ring NHS Direct, and that number is 0845 46 47. That number again, 0845 46 47. Of course, there's massive disruption in the area. The M1 is closed. There's talk about possible disruption at Luton Airport and at Heathrow Airport. And we've already seen on the way down here that people are panic buying petrol already. Obviously, concerns that with the massive amount of fuel going into this place, there may be shortages of petrol. Of course, the police are urging people not to panic and not to create huge traffic jams at petrol stations, as we've seen just up the road here.
Dan Rivers there. Coming up next on the ITV News channel, more on the enormous blast that rocked the residents of Hemel Hempstead this morning. Police are urging residents to stay indoors with windows closed as a large plume of smoke drifts across south of England. We'll have the latest from the area next.